describe why you are running and your qualification for being a school board trustee?
Why I'm running? First off, I've been involved with our district's education since my high school days, which was a very, very long time ago, working either with or against school board members, superintendents, depending upon their positions on things. I get a vested interest in what happens with our educational process here, and the fact that we've got a $1.6 billion bond program that I get to help pay off for the rest of my life. I've also got another vested interest in there. I'm looking at 40% of my property tax bill going to WCCUSD, so I want to make sure the money is spent properly. One of my concerns is that we have a brand new superintendent who has never been a superintendent before, and he may do a great job, and I'm going to give him every opportunity to show what he can or cannot do, but right now he's untried, untested. Also in December, we're going to have 2 brand new school board members. Maybe they know what they're doing, maybe they don't. I don't see anything there that instills confidence in me right now, and I feel that I'm the best qualified person to step in a leadership position to help guide the district over the next 4 years at the minimum. I believe that my history in the community, my leadership positions, you're working with city councils, with state elected officials, with the United States Congress on issues, has put me in a position where I can step in easily and help lead the board in the right direction. Anybody that's ever worked with me will know that I don't ever just sit down and warm the seat. I do take a leadership position. I'm knowledgeable about the issues, having served on the Bond Oversight Committee worked with them for 8 years, having served on been a part of the bond program even before it became the bond program 18 years ago. But also working directly in our schools. I'm also the administrator of the Ivy League Connection scholarship program, the most successful program in the history of our school district. They help promote the college-going culture in our school district. So I've got 3 seconds left. Leave that for a follow-up question on more.
In your questionnaire, you state that your top priority would be to bridge the divides that are keeping us from focusing on what we should be focused on. You list divisiveness in our community, including issues of geographic and ethnic differences. What are some of the specific policies or steps you would take in accomplishing this priority?
Well, the first thing is open up lines of communication so that the people in Hercules talk to the people in El Cerrito, talk to the people in Parkchester Village. Yeah, that's a big deal, and I just use those as examples of geographic areas, because there is a big divide between what's happening in the northern end of our county versus what's happening in the southern end of our county. You've got some of our people that think that the flatlanders are getting the short end of the stick and that everybody else is screwing them. I don't believe that that's the case, but you've got to be able to bridge those divides and bring everybody to the table so they can all talk to each other. And talking to each other is the biggest way to help solve that kind of a problem. If I know more about what you're talking about, maybe we can find a solution to the problem, rather than each sitting in our own little isolated groups, in Hercules or in Kensington or in Parkchester or whatever, and trying to find ways to keep us divided. And it's not just the geographic areas, it's the charter versus anti-charter, it's the black versus white versus green versus purple, it's the male versus female. We've got too many divides here, and we keep trying to find out more and more ways to keep our people separated. That's not the way to succeed. Well, geez, I got another. Sorry, I missed that. I said, but bringing people to the table is the most important solution to the problem. But it's also being able to find compromises, being able to talk to each one of the people, find out what do you need, what do you see as the problem, and what can we do to actually solve the problem. Right now, we're just not seeing that at all. And as school board members in particular, I'm not seeing school board members going out into the community and talking to anybody. I don't see them going out to the schools. I don't see them talking to the parents or the students. I don't see them talking to the teachers, the administrators, the elected officials. And that's something I do on a regular basis. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't talk to a whole lot of elementary school kids, but I do talk to an awful lot of the high school kids, part of the Ivy League Connection. I'm dealing with them every single day, one way or the other. I've been very successful at that end.
Can I ask one more question just really quickly? With the Ivy League Connection, can you just describe some of the diversity within that program?
Diversity in what way?
How diverse is it? And is it trying to bridge some of the gaps?
Sorry, are you talking about ethnicity, or are you talking about geography? Or?
Everything.
Okay, first off, we're completely blind when it comes to applications. I don't care what color you are, I don't care where you live. There are certain qualifications that you must have. Start off with, you have to be registered in our school. You have to have a 3.75 GPA or higher, and that is not necessarily us. Because all we're doing is providing a scholarship. The student still has to apply to the school. These are highly selective schools, and that is their standard. I mean, we can give them a scholarship, and then they're going to be rejected if their GPA doesn't match. And even a 3.75 doesn't guarantee them entry into these schools. They've got to go through a regular application process with essays, and, personal statements, all that kind of stuff. But we go to each one of our 7 public high schools, traditional public high schools. I make presentations. I speak to every qualified sophomore and junior that's eligible. I even talk to the freshmen who are not eligible at that time. But I want to set the stage to prepare them, not just for getting the Ivy League connection, but prepare them for getting into college, for applying for college, knowing what they have to do so that they don't screw up in that first semester, that first quarter of their freshman year. If they screw up, how can they do that? Well, here you go, end up getting a B. A B, what's so bad about a B? A B is the difference between getting into a highly selective school and not. When you've got schools like Stanford that says that they reject 4,000 valedictorians every year. You think how many B students are in there? But as far as ethnicity, I don't care what color you are. I don't care what gender you are. It doesn't matter at all. If we try to make the application and the interview process as blind as possible, if I could put them behind the screen and muffle their voices, I would do that. We don't have a mechanism to do that. But we open it up to everybody, and we try to make sure that everybody has an equal opportunity. What they do with it is up to them. But we work with them, we train them, we mentor them, and we help prepare them so they can succeed. Even to get the scholarship, and that is just the beginning of it.
Just a very quick, it's just that I'm Alex for the family.
I can see the sun.
Yeah, so good to meet you. It's just still unclear on how, I see that you want, I'm with you there, it maybe is, some, there's also difference between the different groups in the different geographical areas and cities. But it's not clear how is that you plan to put all in the same table that we can close those bridges.
Well,
I know that you understand that,
yes.
or you see that, but I just don't see as a parent on how you are planning really to be specific on bringing anybody together.
if you talk to the people here in El Cerrito, I bet you maybe 1 in 100 can tell you that about exactly what the problems of the people in Hercules have with being a part of this district, and vice versa. And the people in the flatlands versus the people in the hills. They're not, because they're not talking to each other. How can you solve the problems if you don't even know what they are? I mean, I'm not an AA person, even if I was, that's be anonymous, but part of their rules is, the very first thing you have to do is admit that there's a problem. And if you don't admit that there's a problem, you can't solve the problem. And until we can identify what the problems are in the different geographic areas, in the different ethnic areas, in the different gender areas, or any other areas, economic areas, until you can identify what these problems are, you can't solve them. And so the best way to do that is to sit people down at the table. You can't do it over emails, you can't do it by just reading comments in newspaper articles or blogs. It doesn't really do the trick. Sitting down with people face to face, being able to talk to them so you've got an immediate back and forth, as maybe you can realize just what the problems are and find a solution that everybody can live with. We all know that we can't get everything we want, but can we get something that we can all live with? I would hope so. But you can't do that until you start talking to each other. And again, one of the problems is that our board is not doing that. Each one of the board members has assigned a school family to go out to. I bet you some of these board members still need to use Google Maps to figure out where some of these schools are. As I know that's part of the case because I've talked to the teachers and administrators say they've never even seen a school board member at their school. Okay, that means if the schools aren't seeing them, the parents aren't seeing them, the kids aren't seeing them. How are those kids supposed to tell the school board members what the problems are? How are the school board members supposed to be able to solve those problems? They never talk to the kids to realize what they are. You've got to be more inclusive, bring people to the table so that you can try to find a solution to the problems. Identify the problems and find that solution.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks.
Kathy. Yeah, so in reference to your top priorities, you state that there is no metric that can gauge success for these issues. Anyone who pays attention to the community and the board will be able to tell if a change has occurred. Do you think that there are tangible measures of success that you would hope to see in student achievement?
Well, I think that if we could have a school board meeting where we're not throwing barbs at each other all night long, that's a tangible way. Where if we start talking about education at the school board meetings, last night at the school board meeting, we didn't hardly touch on education at all. It was a short meeting, a little 2 hours and 20 minutes, but we didn't really talk about education. I always thought that was kind of the goal of a school board, is to help educate the kids. Not talk about consultants, not talk about extended contracts for investigations, not talking about bond programs or campaign finance. But that's one way to be able to tell whether you got your success. There will always be test scores that will help determine that. I'm not a big fan of test scores, but absent any other way to determine just how much somebody is learning, I don't have a solution to that. Even with test scores, it shouldn't be about learning how to take a test. Somehow there should be some education involved there. If you've got the education, test answers are going to come very, very easily to you. But on that particular question, what was I referring to when you talked about the metrics?
To gauge success is what I believe.
What was the question?
I think what your top priorities would be.
Okay.
So I think one of the top priorities that you were talking about may have been around student.
I filled out about 70 pages of questionnaires. They all start blending together after I.
The question was if elected, what would your 3 top priorities
Yes.
be?
Okay.
How would you measure progress on each of these?
Yes.
How would I
And you
measure?
talked about bridging divides, finding a way to attract quality teachers and administrators, refocusing the attention of the board. So your part of your answer was around, I agree with the attention.
Second time?
Yeah, you have 45 minutes.
Okay. Well, since we're not just talking about, we're talking about all 3 of those items. One of the metrics to determine whether we're successful is for the individual communities to stop fighting with each other, quit throwing barbs at each other. Where we say that we absolutely have to have a school board member from the city of Hercules. Why? Is there something about the drinking water out there that makes that person more qualified than the person from San Pablo? I don't buy into that. It's the best qualified person that should be in there. But you got to be able to stop those kinds of accusations. One of the metrics to see how successful you are when it comes to the teachers is if we don't have a list coming out every single month with 50 or 60 teachers and administrators that are leaving us. Now you take a look at the list this last night, that was a mid-season list, but it was still a page and a half long, and you had a number of new hires on there, but you had more people that were leaving. Last month, it had been 100 people that were leaving. The way to succeed on that is maybe they're not leaving.
You stated the district should identify high-performing schools and replicate their success in other schools. However, strong schools are often because they short force and how well of a particular administrator. And that is the kind of things that can be replicated. That is the district's role in ensuring the strong, well-dedicated administrators and school leaders are in place at every school.
I mean, it'd be great if we had top-notch administrators in every school, but just like teachers in any other job, it doesn't always work like that. You take a look at Coronado Elementary School, they've done an outstanding job there in so many ways. Was there something magical about the building? I don't think so, because guess what? They tore the old building down, built a new one, and it was still an outstanding school. So maybe it had something to do with the personnel in the building, at the school. And that usually starts at the top. If you've got a terrible principal there and you've got one outstanding teacher, that one outstanding teacher is not going to make the difference at that school. It has to be a collaborative effort. And having a good principal does make a big difference. We've had a number of them. We've also had a number that weren't so great. There at Hercules High School, Jan Bender was a good AP. She was a good teacher. Became principal? Well, not so good. And it took the district a little while to find that out. They moved her out of there. And I saw that she was on the list last night. She quit. Even from her position being warehoused. But the district has to be able to find people that are working in those kinds of positions that are doing the job And if they're not doing the job, they need to replace them. It's a lot easier to do that with administrative people, a principal, an AP, for instance, than it is with a teacher. Teachers have state-given protections on there. I mean, it sounds bad. I'm not even going to say it because we're all being recorded here, but sometimes it is easier to do something nefarious to a teacher than it is to try to fire them. It can cost you about $500,000 in 2 years to fire a bad teacher, unless that person has cause. We should be able to find a way to either retrain a teacher, help push that teacher in the right direction, or be able to take that teacher away from the students because they're not doing any good. But this has to be done on a school-by-school level. It has to be done with that kind of administration. It has to be done with the backup of the district offices too.
Since you don't have direct educational relationships with our educators, and how will this inform your work?
I'm sorry, you say I don't have the right educational experience?
I didn't say you didn't have the right educational experience.
That's why I'm asking the
Let's say
question.
direct.
Oh, direct?
Yes.
Only because I'm not a teacher?
Well, I mean, it's not my understanding that you are a teacher, but do you have direct educational experience? Did we miss something?
No, I'm asking the questions here. I want to make sure I understand what you're asking. No, I have not, I did not get a teaching certificate. I did not get a master's of education. I didn't think that precluded a person from the community from being able to represent their community.
No, it doesn't.
I'm having trouble understanding the question, I guess.
The question hasn't been finished, I believe, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, actually, I did ask the whole question, but I don't think maybe you didn't hear it.
I guess not.
So the question was again, since you do not have direct educational experience, how do you intend to build strong relationships with our educators, and how would this inform your work?
Well, let's see. We just hired a superintendent of schools that does not have a PhD.
Right, and let me clarify the question, because it's not saying that you have to have direct educational experience, right? I'm just saying you don't have it, you haven't been a teacher. So how would this help you in building those relationships with educators?
Well, I'd like to think
The
that
experience that you do have.
I'd like to think that I'm a smart person. Okay. Most of the tests that I've taken said that. In fact, the University of California in Berkeley, they admitted me with honors and entrance when I was 16, kind of indicated that. So I think I've got the capability of learning and being able to talk and work with people, including the teachers. Because a lot of their problems, you don't have to have a college diploma in education or teaching credential to be able to solve those problems. A lot of them are common sense. And if you take a look at many of the people that do have the credentials that you refer to, that have been on our school board, and show me the success that they had.
And actually, I didn't refer to any credentials, but go ahead.
Well, direct education, or direct skills. You have people that were teachers that couldn't get themselves reelected for whatever reason.
Can I add something? Yes, going back to the same question. This is the way I see that question. And I'm a part of right. And as a profession, I'm a general contractor. I'm really involved with the parent community, with the education of my kids. However, it's still very complex for me trying to understand what is the teacher's perspective on educating at best or excelling into every student. So I have to, approach as many teachers as I can so that I can see the perspective that they have and how we as parents, can understand better. In this case, as a board member, it will be important to see how it is that you intend or, to approach the teacher field or perspective so that we can bring out better education for our kids.
Okay, I understand better now. It goes back to,
We'll start yet again.
I mean, it's going to sound redundant like a broken record. For those of you who still know what records are. But communication is the key. Being able to talk to the people, including talking to the teachers. And these teachers, guess what? They can help educate board members. They can help educate community members about the things that they need, the problems that they're facing. You know, but just like with the students they have, it doesn't do any good if the person they're trying to teach has already made up their mind and has got closed ears. That's never been the case with me. I'm always willing to, even when I know I'm right, I'm going to listen to what you have to say because maybe you're going to be able to show me that I'm wrong on something. And anybody that's worked with me will know that I'm quick to reverse myself when I see that there's a better idea, that there's a different perspective to be looked at. But, you know, speaking, I have no idea about the problems that are happening in the classrooms itself because I'm not there. And what's happening in your classroom is not the same as what's happening in your classroom, is not happening the same in your classroom because they are all different. You can't tar them all with the same brush. So I need to talk to everybody. You got to listen to the people, the boots on the ground, as they say. You know, what are the problems that you're experiencing there? My chaperones with the Ivy League Connection, I hire the best qualified people that I can. These are all certificated district employees, but I put my full faith in them because when they're back in Chicago or Atlanta or New York City or something like that, they're the ones that are there. They know what I want to have done, but I've got to put my faith in them, and then if they've got a problem, I've got to listen to what they have to say, and then go with that.
Each trustee brings a unique personality and set of experiences to the board. If elected to the board, what kind of colleague would you be, and how do you see yourself shaping the culture of the school board?
I've been around for a few years, and since I was a kid, nobody can ever say that they saw me just sitting there warming the seats. I'm proactive in everything that I do, everything. So, first off, when I show up or get ready to go to a board meeting, unlike many of our board members in the past, I'm actually going to come prepared. I'm one of those stupid people that actually reads everything. What's that all about, huh? But I'm going to come prepared. Even beforehand, if I've got a question about an issue, why am I going to waste the time of the public and the board by asking that question at the board meeting when I can just call up the staff person and get it clarified right there? Yeah. But then I can also work with the other board members, following within the Brown Act, to be able to come to a consensus beforehand, feel them out, figure out what they're interested in, what their viewpoints might be. But at the same time, communicating with community members, because that's a key part of it as well. Because it is a collaborative effort. Even though as a board member, I would be elected to represent everybody, and that's important to keep in mind, that the people elected those 5 board members. They get to make the decisions. And they don't put everything out to a vote for all 250,000 people living in this district. So people have to say, okay, I disagree with that board member, and at least that board member listened to what I had to say. May have disagreed with me, but this is a decision that board member has made. But you've got to find a way to work together. That's why it's not one person with 4 subordinates. It's 5 people working together.
Question? How do you envision your ideal relationship with the superintendent and with your fellow board members? What would that look like to you on that?
I don't expect that we're going to go out drinking after every meeting, staying at each other's house or anything like that. But at the very least, it should be friendly. It should be collegiate, where you're not fighting each other, where you can agree to disagree. My background is in organized labor. As president of the Steamfitters Local 342, we build oil refineries. I used to manage $1 billion projects. But for 19 years, I was an officer of my union. I was the head of the negotiating team. And when we'd sit down there at the negotiation table, when it came to negotiations, we'd yell and scream at each other. We'd call our mothers certain bad things. But then when it was over, we'd say, hey, you want to go have some lunch? Because it was never personal. You could agree to disagree. And that's what I would see on the board, without the yelling and calling people's names.
And with the superintendent?
And with the superintendent, as long as the superintendent treats me with respect, I'm going to treat that person with respect. We have not always had that. I had an outstanding relationship with Dr. Harder, where I could talk about all kinds of things. and I would help the district as much as possible. That was not the case before him. It was Superintendent Johnston, who thought that she was above everybody and treated me like a slave. No, I never liked being treated like a slave. She didn't give respect. She didn't get much respect from me. But once again, you get the board, the superintendent works for the board. The board sets policy. The superintendent has to find ways to implement that policy. And if the superintendent is not doing that job, even if I'm good friends with that superintendent, it's my job with the other board members to straighten it out. And if that doesn't get straightened out, we have to take more drastic action to straighten it out.
When we look at the current makeup of the school board, there are already 3 white trustees. Some community members might think that it's important to have a more diverse representation on our board. How do you reassure the community that you will look out for the interests of all children and that you are the right candidate?
I mean, how can you assure anybody that you're a person of integrity and that you're actually going to do what you're going to say? You can't. The people are either going to trust you and believe you, or they're not. And a lot of that has to do with your history. Do you have a history of keeping your word? Do you have a history of talking to people, of communicating with people, of following through on what you say that you're going to do? If you don't have that, well, I hope they never elect you to begin with. But I do have that kind of a history. I'm a very public person. Between public meetings I attend, the committees I've served on, my Ivy League Connection students, there's hardly one of them that can say that I did not follow through with everything that I said that I was going to do for them. And I was 100% honest with them. I treated them with respect, but I also listened to what they have to say. You'd be surprised how many questionnaires that we give them asking, how did we do? What can we do to improve? Because we listen to what they have to say. Because once again, I may be the one doling out the scholarships, but they're the ones that will be receiving end of it, and I have to listen to what they have to say. I can't guarantee that I'm going to do everything that they want me to do, because there may be reasons about it. They're only seeing a small little piece of the universe where I'm seeing the whole universe. Did I address everything that was in your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Well,
Sorry.
the first part was that we already have 3 white trustees. And some people might think that we need to have more diverse.
I'm sorry, I never bought into this whole idea that we had to elect people based on their ethnicity or their gender or their religion. I thought that's why we fought wars. I mean, when I was young, I used to do things on the streets of Berkeley to make sure that we had equal rights for everybody. In my own union, I fought for equal rights for everybody. That didn't mean that somebody was more equal than the other. And then when you start saying that we need to have somebody that is not white or not male doing that, that's not equal rights. That's discrimination. When I got out of high school, I had the grand idea of going to Stanford. For stupid reasons. They won the Rose Bowl. And it was stupid at the time, but I remember this was at a time when we were making amends for 400 years of oppression for people of color and for women. And what typically happens after a situation like that, we go way overboard. And I actually had an admissions officer at Stanford saying, "Why are you applying? You're a white male. We're not taking white males this year." I was being discriminated against because I was a white male. And that's what that question sounds like once again. And guess what? Alan Bakke had the same thing happen to him when he applied to the UC Davis School of Medicine. It took him 7 years before the Supreme Court said discrimination for somebody is discrimination against somebody too. Equal rights means equal rights. And so I'm actually offended by anybody that says that we have to have somebody of color, that we have to have more females, we have to have a Jew, we have to have a Muslim, anything like that. That's offensive to me. I don't buy into that premise at all.
I'm just going to add on to that. Just so you know where this question is coming from, in different meetings with the community, diverse organizations and groups. So, people pop up questions. And we are trying to, recompile those questions so that we can see what is your take onto that, which is clearly, what's your answer to that. So, but yeah, so you know why it is that question, not directly from this panel, but from the people in the community.
Yeah. And just so you know, too, in my own union, sorry, I'm going to have to finish this because I'm getting tired of people calling me a racist.
I'm giving you 2 minutes.
Thank you. In my own union, I am personally responsible for making sure that my union became integrated. It was a good old boy union, father-son. You had to be sponsored. We actually still have this in our little museum, that little box with the white marbles and the one black one on there, where somebody could be blackballed out of the union. You had to be a father, somebody had to sponsor you. I made sure that we opened it up to people of color. I made sure that we got females into my union. And on the jobs, I made sure that females were given every right. If females on a heavy construction job, trust me, that was a tough sell. But as long as they could do the job, and they were welcome on any project that I ran. I can't tell you how many people of color and how many females I set up in management positions, foreman, general foreman. I made sure to promote them through there and make sure they got proper training. Because I believe in equal rights for everybody. I followed along with the people in my union at the time, talking about early 70s, we'd still be a redneck union.
Don, can I just, with all due respect, I don't think anyone here intended to suggest that you were a racist, if that's how you read it. I think the question was, as I heard it, it was, there has been, to Alex's point, there are comments about diversity and the value of that. So the question was more, how would you address that? And so very respectful of your answer, but certainly did not in any way mean to suggest that you were a racist. It's just as the community asked that question, how can we all think about it together? So apologies if it sounded like we were in any way accusing you of being racist. That was not the intention.
I'm sorry, it's a problem I see in the community too.
Yeah,
I live in Richmond, and you hear some of our community leaders talk about how proud they are of how diverse our community is.
Yeah.
Well, it's not diverse at all.
Yeah.
You've got a black section, you've got a brown section. The blacks don't talk to the browns don't talk to the Asians, and the whites live in a completely different area there. That's not diverse.
Yeah, no, I understand.
There's a clear dividing line. You can't cross over there. And we got people on our city council that was asked the very exact same question. They said, we've got to have a person of this color. We've got to have.
It comes up,
I mean,
yeah.
that is offensive to me. And it offends me that my own community is doing it, and I fight that, and I have been fighting that for decades. Anytime this kind of question comes up again.
I understand.
I was accused just the other day by somebody, young kids that brought kids first before the Richmond City Council.
Yep.
I mean, they were mistreated severely by the council. I did not like it. But the article I wrote, I said they were angry. Yes, they were angry. That's the only way. Well, in construction terms, they were pissed off. Can't put that in a headline in my newspaper, though. But I was accused of being a racist because you can't call people of color angry. What the hell?
Okay, and with
All right,
that,
with that.
let's transition.
Yes.
We'll take to make our district one of the best in the state.
Aside from taxing us to death to pay for everything, again, bridging that divide that we talked about, and I know it's a sore subject, but bridging that divide of the charter schools. That is the most divisive educational issue in our district right now. It doesn't matter what my feelings on charter schools are. The law says that charter schools have a legal right to exist. They're to live with it, okay? And that means that as a school board member, I raise my right hand and say I will represent everybody in this school district. It means everybody. It doesn't mean just the people going to attending the traditional schools. It means that the charter schools as well, because they're taking public money. That means that they deserve their fair share of the public money, including the parcel tax, which puts me in trouble with some of my friends in the district. Because it's the taxpayers that are paying the money on that. It didn't say going directly only to traditional public schools. But you've got to be able to get people together, because right now it's black and white. There's no middle ground. There's no gray area to that. That's what one of the interviews I was at the other day. I mean, it became extremely hostile because the interview ladies would not accept that. Everything except for charter schools was failing, and that anybody that defended anything other than her charter school was in her enemy. That was not a good place to be. But we've got to be able to bring people together. If we so that we can start talking about education again. We've got to get the ethnicities together, so they're not going to quit fighting each other at their schools. We've got to stop the sexual harassment in our schools, so the kids get back to education. Yeah. One thing with the Ivy League connection, one of the kids were saying all the time, they're just so shocked when they're in classes where the kids want to be there, as opposed to here where they have to be here. It makes a big difference on your ability to get an education in a situation like that. There's no reason why we can't do that ourselves.
So, as a group, I think there were some follow-up questions that were asked during the recent questions. So I'd like to, Don, instead of the 15 minutes that we had originally discussed, I'd like to bring that down to 8 minutes. So we'll have 4 follow-up questions from the group. Yeah.
I'll stay out of here. I don't have to be on the road for about 20 minutes. I got to be in Concord for meeting at 7.
Let's try it with 4. There's more burning questions. We'll ask you a few more. Okay.
I have a question. So I wanted to return back to your questionnaire. Number 4 in particular is regarding the local control accountability plan. And your response was more or less not to answer because you weren't familiar, or I can read the quote.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. At the time that I wrote that, I was not familiar with it.
Yeah, so
I
then my
am
question.
better informed now.
Exact, perfect. So my question was going to be, how has your thinking or understanding around the LCAP process changed? In particular to the 2 subpoints of the question, original questionnaire was around improving community input and also including measurable impact on student learning. So how you will hope to improve upon the LCAP on those 2 bases.
I couldn't tell you the total number of community meetings they had to discuss the LCAP, but it was in the many, many dozens. I mean, they engaged the public 6 ways from Sunday. If you wanted to be involved, you had an opportunity to show up at meetings and get involved. And you look at the 200-page report that they passed at the end of June, there were an awful lot of comments on there. Some of them made a lot of sense, some of them were way off and wild. But they listened to what people had to say. It didn't mean they agreed with them. But they did an awful lot, they put in an awful lot of effort to try to figure out what the people in each community wanted for their school. Because the people in Hercules may want something different than the people in Parkchester may want something different than the people in Kensington. You know, you need to be able to listen to what they all have to say. And I thought they did a pretty good job of that. Could they do better? Well, they could have had a meeting every single day. Would that really improve things? I'm not sure it would. There has to be a time when you say, well, you know, we've done as good a job as we can do. As far as the decisions that were made, that's going to be a tough one. We can't make an automatic decision and say, that was a bad decision. We haven't given it a chance to find out whether it's going to work or not. Because once again, we have to rely upon the people that we elect on the school board to make those decisions. If they're doing a bad job, and we can try to lobby them otherwise, or we can throw them out come next election time. But we cannot get up there and do what some people do, and get stand on the microphone and get upset because the board just refuses to do everything they tell them to do.
So if you were elected as a board member, how would you manage or navigate that? The community engagement process of the LCAP and also the second piece around the measurable outcome? Because those are both requirements of the new funding formula.
Yeah, and in my opinion, one of the best ways to determine the success of the decisions that were made is to go back there and talk to the people in that community. So what do you think? Is this working? You know, or what else do we need to do? Because once again, you know, even as a board member, I can't be in all 300 or 400 classrooms that we've got here. I can't be at every one of our 50-something schools to tell exactly what's going on every single day. You've got to rely upon the people that are there. You've got to rely upon the teachers, the principals, the APs, the counselors, the parents, and the students, and listen to what they have to say. So, you know, you say, okay, we tried Plan A. You know, it's working great. Plan B, though, sucks. Okay, let's keep doing Plan A, but Plan B, let's throw it away and come up with Plan C to find a better way of doing things.
Minnie, I just got a signal that our next candidate is waiting. Could I sneak in one question? Is that okay? I just wanted to ask, there's clearly a lot of stereotypes or myths, or some people believe about what Education Matters is all about. And
Yeah.
that hopefully we'll have to, I just want to be really upfront, I really appreciate you coming. And we worked really hard with lots of people in the community to find diverse perspectives and to make this not about charters. So people in here who aren't big fans of charters or are fans, and keep the conversation off of that, as you said, and I appreciate you bringing that subject up. Do you think, I just love a perspective at the end here, do you think it felt like a fair and reasonable process to you?
Yes. Again, compared to two of the other ones that were primarily charters, absolutely. There was no question, well, the California Charter School Association, that's all they wanted to talk about, was charters.
Okay.
We only got to 3 questions in 35 minutes,
Wow, okay.
because they kept yelling at me.
Any good feedback for what we could do better and how we might even be more balanced and thoughtful?
No, the questions your questionnaire was a pretty good questionnaire. I mean, it delved on the charter issues to some extent, but that was to be expected.
It's such a hot topic, yeah.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
The Central Labor Council, again, I've been on there for 26 years, and it just shocked me. For once, they had a questionnaire that was actually pretty good. Yeah, I was shocked with that. I told them about that. They'll probably throw it out after this now. But I think this was fair. I did not have any problem with it. I apologize. It was difficult to hear you. Your voice is a little bit gravelly, and in this room, it just did not come across, and that's why I had trouble with some of your questions.
Yeah, the room's a little hard to.
The acoustics are all that part of it.
That's fair.
And you can't work in heavy construction, that's as long as I did.
Got it, so I appreciate that.
It works for some people. I didn't hear that, honey.
No, I get
Take
it.
the garbage out. No, I didn't hear that.
There you go.
Thank you, Don.
Anything else, Again, I want to thank you very much.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you for your
Have a
time.
good night.
Thank
Thanks
you
for.
for being here.